Let's master buttonholes on the Singer Heavy Duty 4411 sewing machines. So first off, we do have a built-in 4-step buttonhole. And so we're going to start off with step 1. Those will be the tacks in the top and bottom of a buttonhole themselves. The other 2 are going to indicate the legs that it will be sewing, the left leg and the right leg. Next, your stitch length. That's why there's a little picture of a buttonhole. You're going to be somewhere between 0 and 1. Tell you the truth, you're going to want to probably start about halfway and then work your way towards 0. All depends on the thickness of thread you're using. On your stitch width, turn it all the way to 6. That's going to give us a nice wide buttonhole, room for both those legs to stitch on your fabric. And if you really want a nice pretty buttonhole, drop your tension from 4 to 3 or 2.5. That's going to allow the stitches to pull to the back side. It'll make the top very nice and rounded. Next, you have a buttonhole foot B in the machine, and you do want to make sure that you can read the letter B, so that's going to be out the back. And as we start, you're going to need to have the foot starting at the red mark closest to you. It will actually stitch away from us first and then back down towards us when we go. So since this is not an electronic machine, there is a few things you have to control. But let's start off by how big of a buttonhole we would need. So you could actually set your button on it and kind of go, okay, so I need a little bit longer than 1, 2, 3 of these red dashes. You could also put your button on your fabric and mark a starting and ending point on either side of these that you'll be working with. To change feet, touch the little lever in the back of the foot and position it right underneath that kind of claw and lower the foot in place. You can hear it click on. Now this is going to be loose, so no matter what, just make sure you push it all the way away from you before you start on one of the lines for your stitched buttonhole. So once you're here, you're going to make sure you're on the center choice that starts at number 1. So again, if there was a mark on my fabric, I'm going to make sure that my needle comes right down on that mark for the starting point. So this is the tack at the bottom, or a bar tack. So how many stitches do you need? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or so stitches. 8 at the most would be plenty. And then I just want you to make sure that your needle is up out of the fabric before you turn your stitch selection dial to step 2. So when you move to step 2, it is going to sew the left side of the leg, and it's going to sew away from us. So when it sews away from us, we are going to watch those little red marks kind of start to slide past each other. I was technically on the 1, 2, 3 and a little bit. So I'm going to go just like so. Bring that needle up. Now we need to repeat that part that we started with at the bottom, but now at the top. So that's why you repeat step 3 on that same number and the same amount of stitches. So maybe 6 or so stitches. And now we're going to make the return trip at step number 4. Now your thread is on the top here for the first time you do a buttonhole. So I'm going to just slide it out of my way here. And then it's going to travel back down. Now you are in charge of stopping it when those 2 meet. You'll also see your red mark of what is near the needle is coming close to the red mark where we started. So that's always a good way to do it. So once it kind of pretty much comes on top of where we did that first stitching, then you are set. You can go ahead and take a look. So what are we looking for when we take a peek at our buttonhole? So when I started off, tell you the truth, I was a little concerned I had gotten my stitches too close together. So I had lengthened it just a little bit on this last part of the return trip. And I got some openings. A lot of people like a nice solid buttonhole, which I totally understand. I just didn't want to get hung up and then have it too close together that it didn't want to form. So now I can find that happy medium for stitch length. I'm going to turn it just a hair back towards 0. Now my threads are underneath my buttonhole foot, so I don't have to worry about them next time. And watch, I can just go ahead and do another one. Go back to step 1. Do my 6, 7 tacks. Needle is up. Go ahead and stitch. You can watch the lines on the side. Needle's up. Go step 3 and return trip step 4. So what are some other uses of buttonholes? I do find people outside of the garment world do find where we can do decorative uses like weaving ribbon through more than one buttonhole. We can also use those for things like in the like a shower curtain, like you're hooking something through a ring or a tie, or drawstring bags or drawstring pants for boys. There's a lot of uses for buttonholes other than just what I think of as garments or shirts. So keep that in mind. If you see a buttonhole, that's actually how easy it is to do it. It takes 4 steps and a foot, and you're off and running.